Part 41. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bh Yaoye 11U. Chapter 403. Little baby, little baby. You told me not to call me Xiaobao. Call me Lu Viang, Xiaobao responded loudly without even looking back, and walked quickly. Read. Ma Zheng ran over and grabbed him from the back of the neck. Let go, it's an insult to politeness. Xiaobao stopped, stretched out his school uniform with his hands, and glared at Ma Zheng with a frivolous look. Xiaobao. Don't call me. Since entering the school, Xiaobao has not allowed others to call him by his nickname. Call Xiaobao kindly. Besides, don't they still call you Xiaobao after talking about your mother? Then are you my mother? Ma Zheng choked. If you call me Xiaobao again, I will also call you Yuan Yuan. I'm not round at all. I'm not round at all now. When he was a child, he was round, so everyone called him Yuan Yuan. But he's not round at all now. Xiaobao took a look at him. Where was the skinny person with squinting eyes due to the flesh on his face when he was a child? Is Grandpa Ma not going to give you food, or are we too poor in the mountains to feed you? What do you know? My grandpa said that I'm going to grow taller. Xiaobao looked at his height. He was 2 years older than him and the same height as him. He had the nerve to say that he wanted to get a strip. Dislike. The two walked out of the classroom arm in arm. I will go to Reizhu with my grandpa tomorrow. My grandma has a birthday. How about we go together? The king of Yu has sent several letters, asking you to go when you are free. Xiaobao paused and said, I'll go see my grandfather again after a while. The autumn harvest is about to begin in the mountains, and I want to stay and help. Your mother still needs a little labor like you. I finally have a break from the busy farming season, and I want to spend more time with my mother. Besides, it's almost Mid-Autumn Festival. You're going to Reizhu for a family reunion. What do you mean by leaving my mother behind? And there's a long table banquet to be held in the Mid-Autumn Mountains. My mother still lets me talk. Yeah, there's going to be a long table banquet again soon, otherwise I won't go and stay in the mountains. The bustling long table banquet is a bit too tempting. Xiaobao glanced at him sideways. Aren't you afraid that your parents will break your legs? Their hands are not that long. But letting my grandpa go alone, I'm a little worried. You'd better go. I'll save some delicious food for you. Okay. Keep all the delicious dried meat and fruits for me. What's the use of eating so much? I'm still skinny. Looking for a beating. My grandpa said it was a draw, do you understand? You little brat, you don't understand anything. Only you understand. But you are 2 years older than me, how much more can you understand? The two of them left the school laughing and cursing. Elder brother. Wei Zhao. Dabao nodded towards the two of them. Are you going to Reizhu tomorrow? Ma Zheng nodded, yes. Help us take care of grandpa. Yes, help me tell my grandfather that my brother and I will visit him after a while. I hope he won't work so hard every day, eat well, sleep well, and don't miss us too much. We will visit him after a while. Okay, I will definitely bring the message. The three of them broke up at the entrance of the school. Many students also greeted Dabao and Xiaobao at the door. Some of them knew each other, and some did not. It has been 3 years, and the group of people who entered the school together graduated a few months ago. Some people stay to continue studying, some people leave, and a new group of students enrolls every year. Some people know each other, and some people only meet each other in person. Qingyang stopped studying and practiced martial arts with Ma Xian these days. He planned to work under Ma Mingwen in Reizhu after mid-autumn. In June this year, Wu Quanzhong, the founding emperor of the Liang dynasty, was killed by his son in his palace after only 6 years in office. The Liang dynasty was in chaos, and the country had to do a good job of defense. Qingyang has already agreed with his family that he will go to Yu for some experience. Su Qingyu also persuaded Su's father and mother, and the whole family agreed that he should go out for training. The world may become unstable again. In the Liang dynasty of the Central Plains, Wu Quanzhong became the emperor and was somewhat unscrupulous. I don't know if I have been a little brother for too long and have been severely suppressed. The series of actions since becoming the emperor are quite incomprehensible. He gave birth to many sons, but after the death of the eldest son, he did not establish a prince, and just let the sons fight to the death like cross-eyed chickens. As for the old man, he hides in the harem to watch plays and have fun. Call this daughter-in-law into the palace today to have a talk, and call that daughter-in-law into the palace tomorrow to listen to instructions. The daughters-in-law came in turns, and the one who looked good would naturally have more chances of being called into the palace. There were very few emperors throughout history who were so dissolute and immoral that they allowed their daughters-in-law to take turns sleeping with them. His old man used his position as prince to entertain his sons. As a result, which family with several sons does not have several beautiful concubines? As for Wu Quanzhong, I don't know if he is old, has a bad mind, or has been brainwashed. He had many biological sons, but he felt that none of them were worthy of reuse. Instead, he planned to pass the throne to his adopted son Wu Yaowen. He also gave Wu Yaowen's wife Wang the imperial seal that he didn't know where he got it, and asked her to send someone recall Wu Yaowen who is outside. Unexpectedly, this private matter was overheard by the wife of another son, Wu Yagui, and she immediately informed Wu Yagui. Wu Yagui was still serving as the governor of Leizhu. As soon as he got the news, he immediately contacted Han Qing, the leader of the Zolonghu army. They hit it off immediately and decided to kill his father and usurp the throne with the help of Han Qing. The two agreed, and Wu Yagui disguised himself as a soldier of Zolonghu army and sneaked into his father's bedroom in the middle of the night. Wu Quanzhong was awakened in the middle of the night. He circled around the pillars in the hall for more than 10 times, but still failed to escape. In the end, he was stabbed through the abdomen by Wu Yagui's men. He died on the spot. Wu Yagui not only killed his father, but also ordered people to wrap Wu Quanzhong's body with a mosquito net, peeled off the floor tiles of the bedroom, and dug a pit to hide him. Then there was a series of magical operations. First, he sent someone to pass a false edict to sentence Wu Yaowen to death, and then said that his father was unwell and ordered him to supervise the country. With this series of operations, how could his brothers, who were as smart as men, be stupid and eat idle meals? There were so many eunuchs and palace maids in the palace, so many spies, and he didn't kill them all. Who among the ministers didn't know that he killed his father and usurped the throne? After he ascended the throne, no one was willing to assist him, which led to the separation of the monarch and his ministers. And how could his brothers be willing? They all led troops to kill. Next, the father and son of the Wu family, first the son killed the father, and then the brother killed the brother. The Liang dynasty was in chaos. Once the Liang dynasty was in chaos, how could the Jin state, which had always regarded the Liang dynasty as its mortal enemy, not be a little excited? When Mu Kong died, he personally told his son Mu Yuxian 3 things. First, the traitor Wen Gongren and his family must be killed. Second, Wu Quanzhong must be eliminated. Mu Kong was also very petty. In the rainy night arson case, Wu Quanzhong sent people to burn him, and he always remembered this grudge. He has not yet avenged it. And that guy actually sat on the throne. The mortal feud between the two families was only short of being written into the ancestral tree, so that it would be passed down from generation to generation. Third, it was necessary to stop the Khitan from going south. Whether it was noble or not, no one knew. Who made your Mu family occupy the north and become the largest force in the north? Who was the first person the Khitan robbed if not you? If you don't guard the northern national gate, who will guard it? Once the Liang dynasty was in chaos, all places followed suit. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 404. Grandma, Grandma, we are back. Xiaobao has grown up a few years and has become more stable outside. But when he comes home, he still looks like he is out of control, and he calls out from afar. Hey, Grandma is at home. Mother Su heard her grandson's voice and happily responded in the house. As soon as the two brothers entered the house, a chubby little thing rushed over. Brother, brother. Oh, Ning Ning. Come on, brother, give him a hug. Xiaobao went over to catch him first, put his hands under his armpits, and lifted him up. Ning Ning, have you eaten too much today? I haven't eaten much. I haven't had dinner yet. Ning Ning is already hungry. Brother, come on, give me a hand, I can't hold me anymore, Xiaobao wailed. When Dabao heard this, he quickly held his arm and narrowly avoided throwing Ning Ning to the ground. Oh, you little chubby guy. Xiaobao rubbed his forehead against Ning Ning's. Humph, Ning Ning is not a chubby little boy. My brother studies martial arts every day and can't hold Ning Ning, so it's useless. My uncle can hold her. Humph. Okay, if you think my brother is useless, let's see if he doesn't spank you. He put Ning Ning on the ground and tried to beat him. No, when little fatty saw brother Xiaobao chasing him, he turned around and ran away screaming. Oh, please run slower. Seeing the two of them chasing each other, Sue's mother wanted to stop them, but she didn't expect that the two brothers were running so fast that she couldn't catch them, so she had to forget it. He smiled and looked at Dabao. Dabao, are you tired? Is it hard to go to school? Grandma has stewed sweet soup. You and Xiaobao will go to the kitchen to have a drink later. Okay. Thank you, Grandma. Mother Su was very happy when she saw Dabao growing up into a handsome young man. Hey, my grandson is so handsome that no one can compare with him. Where's Yaya? She looked behind him and saw no one. My sister and her classmates went to the village next door and won't be back until later. Okay. Yaya also attended school in the past 2 years and made many good sisters. She is accompanied by her sisters when she comes home from school, and sometimes she is not with the little ones. The next day was Sue's father's 49th birthday. Su Qingyu decided to celebrate his birthday at home early, and called all the people in the Su family together to have a fun time together. In the mountains, it is popular for old people to celebrate their birthdays by celebrating their birthdays over 9, but not 10, and over 0, not a full birthday. Su Qingyu also followed the rules in the mountains and planned to celebrate Su's father's birthday on his 49th birthday. Early in the morning, many women came to the village to help prepare the birthday banquet. Since Ruyi married Si Yuan, Su Qingnao had asked her mother and daughter to live in Si Yuan's house. Now that Ruyi was pregnant, she was not allowed to come over. The Su family doesn't invite servants now. If something happens, just shout in the village. There are many people in the village to help. Su's father had dressed up early in the morning, putting on the silk clothes that he was reluctant to wear at ordinary times, as well as new clothes and new shoes. He sat at the head of the table and accepted the birthday wishes from his descendants, his brothers, and their families. 3 years have passed, and the second wife, Yawu, has also gotten married to a girl from the mountains. She is now pregnant and will give birth soon. Wu Su Qingnao originally wanted him to be in charge of the shop in Renzhou, but he couldn't worry about his mother, and the second wife also wanted him to support her, so Su Qinglao arranged for him to go to the market town to manage several shops. Xiaohe also married in the mountains and gave birth to a daughter at the beginning of this year. Today, she is holding her daughter and bringing her son-in-law to celebrate her uncle's birthday. Qiuju, who lives in the third bedroom, married Qi Liang, who works for Ma Xian, and has just given birth to a child. Now she and Qi Liang also live in the village. Yagui studied for 3 years, but stopped studying and became a boy behind Yowu. Su Sai-kwan from the fourth room also married a girl from the mountains the year before last and gave birth to a son. Now I have a wife, children, and a daughter, and I am very happy. Liwa and King Zhao are also in the school now. They are little school children. They look very different from when they first entered the village 3 years ago. As for Lucaya, many people liked her because of her hard work and kindness. Many people asked her to go to Su's mother and wanted to marry her, but Lucaya didn't agree and only said that the pear blossom was too small. Su's father looked at the people in the Su family one by one and saw that they were now living a better life in the village and that they were prosperous. There was a smile on his face all the time, feeling that he was worthy of the ancestors of the Su family, and he couldn't help but smile silly at everyone. Looking back at her family, King Liu had Ning Ning beside her, and now she had another child in her belly. At this time, her son-in-law was standing next to her, holding her up nervously, for fear that she would make any mistake. Looking at Yaya standing next to her, she is over 8 years old. She has gone to school and has become lively and cheerful. Next to her, Qingyang Qingxing is also 14 years old and an adult. Now there are people to kiss the brother and sister. Time flies so fast. As for Qing Lao, there are 2 sons standing on one left and one on the right. The 7 or 8-year-old son is handsome and capable of literary and military skills. He is no worse than the young official masters he saw in his in-laws' home. No, he is stronger than them all. Xiaobeo's father was a Jadushi envoy, and he had a much higher official rank than them. Qing Lao is a lucky man, and he is not worried about her. Just thinking about my eldest son, I couldn't help but sigh. My grandson is 4 or 5 years old, and I don't know when I can see him again. We met on the road, and I'm afraid my grandfather and grandson didn't even recognize me. Why are you so stunned? I'm just waiting for you to speak. If we don't start the banquet, the food will be cold. Su's mother poked him. On this big day, the family's children and grandchildren were all around, and they were still thinking about other things. Do you think I don't know what you old guy is thinking? Don't you just miss your eldest son? It must be that the daughter-in-law doesn't want to come back, so they can't see each other. Humph, if she doesn't want to come back, then don't come back. Does she need someone to serve her? She has sons and daughters, grandchildren around her, food and drink, and money. She can come back if she wants. If you don't come back, you will be considered dead. Let's eat, Father Su said happily, and everyone started to move. Oh, let's eat. Grandpa, my stomach has been rumbling for a long time. I can't stand the smell of the kitchen. Xiao Ding came to him and complained. Haha, our Xiaobeo is hungry, then come on, sit next to Grandpa, and Grandpa will pick meat for you. Okay, I want to eat a few more pieces today, Xiaobeo said and helped his grandfather walk to the dining table. Su Qingmei looked at her son with disgust. Did she usually give him less food and drink? Look at this greedy look. Mom Dabeo came over and held her hand. Su Qing'an touched the head of Dabeo, who looked like a little adult, and said, My dear son, you are still steady. Look at your brother. Mother usually doesn't let him eat. Dabeo smiled and said, My brother is usually very steady outside. He is like this at home and in front of his family. Su Qingliu was supported by Wei Fuking and just walked to her side. She smiled and said, You should be content. One of your 2 sons is steady and the other is lively. They are both so sensible. You still complain. Look at Ning Ning. She just caught a chicken leg and ate it. Her hands and mouth were full of oil. She almost disliked me to death. Mom, my brother is still young and can't stand hunger. Yaya saw her mother talking about her brother again, and hurriedly said something for her brother. The brother is only 3 years old and doesn't know anything. Mother just talks about him. Seeing Su Qingliu and Yaya staring at each other, Su Qing'an and Wei Fucane looked at each other and couldn't help laughing. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 405. Su's father's birthday was celebrated happily, and after the banquet, Su King Nao saw Sudahu looking enviously at the bustling Su family, and walking out with a somewhat dejected expression. Su Kingyu felt a pain in her heart for some reason and followed him. Brother Big Tiger. Sudahu turned his head and saw that it was her, with a smile on his face, Ching Lao. Brother Dahuo, please accompany me for a walk in the village. Okay. I just happened to have some fun. Sudahu was very happy and rubbed his hands together excitedly. The two of them walked in the village, looking at every plant and tree in the village. Over the past 3 years, a lot has changed in the village. Every household is living a peaceful life. In some households, Su Kingyu has even returned the deed of sale. For example, Ling Fenggu's family and Gu Hong's family. He was afraid that Su King Nao would drive them away, so he didn't want to take this deed of prostitution. Now the people in the village truly regard Shanlik Sinjanzai as their home. The sound of children playing can be heard everywhere in the village. In the past 3 years, many new babies have been added to the village. Moreover, now that the school is on holiday, some children can be seen playing together in the village. It is usually quiet in the village. Seeing Sudahu's eyes following the children, Su Kingyu thought for a while and said, "Time flies so fast. It has been more than 6 years since we came here from Fengting town. Yeah. I almost forgot what Kyoto village looks like." Su Kingyu was also a little emotional and asked him, if the world gets better in the future, will Brother Dahu return to Kyoto village? Sudahu paused and shook his head, "I won't go back. There is no one in my family in Kyoto village. Why go back? This mountain is my home." "Ching Lao, you don't want to drive me away, do you?" Su Kingyu glared at him, "My parents are afraid they want to beat me to death." Sudahu chuckled and said, "When I was a child, I always relied on your parents to take care of me in Kyoto village. I was given a mouthful of food from time to survive. Now in this mountain, your parents also treat me as their own son. I am lucky to meet your parents in this life. Not just my parents, our entire family treats you as a relative." Sudahu nodded, "I know." Su Kingyu opened her mouth, finding it difficult to speak. But looking at the figure of Sudahu walking in front of her, he was still alone in his mid-20s, and her heart felt a little heavy. "Brother Dahu, you know, there are many people coming to inquire about your marriage with my parents." Sudahu paused, pinched his hands at his sides, and nodded after a long moment, "Yes, my uncle and aunt told me." "Then what did you think about it?" Sudahu turned around and looked at Su Kingyu. "Kingyu, do you want me to find someone to get married to?" Su Kinjao looked at him and nodded, "I think so. My parents and I have been hoping that you can find a suitable person, get married, and have someone care about you, take care of your life, and then give birth to you with these children. You will have someone to talk to when you are happy or sad, and you will have someone to take care of you when you are sick and bring you bowls of hot water and tea." Sudahu said nothing after hearing this. Su Kinjao added, "I know you like children. You treat your little baby and Dabao as your own. Yaya and Ningning also like you at home. Every time you go there, Ningning sticks to you and makes you happy. Gao. When you have your own children in the future, you will definitely feel sorry for them. My mother always said that you should start a family as soon as possible. She can take care of your children while she is still able to move." Su's father and Su's mother really regarded Sudahu as their other son and worried about his marriage all the time. Over the years, he found many girls in the village, tall, short, fat and thin, with all kinds of temperaments and looks, but Sudahu just didn't speak. The other members of the Su family moved to the mountains and started to live a better life. Xiaohe, Qiuju, and Yuwu all got married and each had children. Su Saiquan also found a yellow-flowered girl with a little oil bottle. Only Sudahu remained silent. Over the years, he had helped Su Qingnao take care of outside affairs, and he was in charge of everything at the iron mine. Countless families in the mountains wanted to marry their daughters to him, and even Ma Mingwen wanted to propose marriage to him, but he just refused. Su's father and mother were extremely anxious. Sudahu was walking on the mountain road of the village, listening to Su Qingyu's constant persuasion, asking him to find a woman to start a family and have several children. My heart felt sour and painful, as if something important was about to be pulled out from deep inside my heart. Qing Lao, do you really want me to find a woman to start a family with? Su Qingyu saw him looking straight at her, his eyes burning, and she couldn't bear it and wanted to run away. But she still met his gaze and nodded, I want it more than anyone else. Sudahu closed his eyes in discomfort. What if, he dies? Su Qingyu was stunned for a moment. When she realized what she was saying, she understood what he was talking about. On the wedding night, he was afraid of delaying me and didn't want to consummate the marriage with me, but I persuaded him. I told him that I wanted to have a child, and as long as he was alive in the future, I would wait for him, no matter if he broke his arm or his leg. If he dies and I have a child, I won't marry another person and will always be there for him. After hearing this, Sudahu's heart felt as if someone had plucked it out, and he smashed it on the ground and beat it. A pain spread throughout his body. After a long time, he straightened his back, smiled at Su Qingyu, and said, Okay, I understand. If there is something suitable, I will ask my uncle and aunt to help me take care of it. Su Qingyu looked at him steadily. She felt that she was a little cruel. But she really has no interest in men and women. Now that Lu Bachan is still alive, even if he is gone one day, she does not want to get married again. It's not that he has deep feelings for Lu Bachan, but he simply doesn't want to maintain a relationship anymore. She didn't know whether she was living her life or someone else's life in this life. She is alone, has a little baby and a big baby, and she is very satisfied. Qing Lao, please go back. Your father celebrates his birthday today, so go back and stay with your uncle. Su Qingyu looked at him with some worry. Seeing that he had no intention of talking to her anymore, she could only say, Okay, then I'll go back. Go back. Su Qingyu took 2 steps and looked back at him. Brother Dahua, we are a family in this life, and we will be in the next life too. Sudahu looked at her, and after hearing her words, tears suddenly filled his eyes, and he nodded, yes. Always. When Su Qingyu saw that he had agreed, she smiled at him and turned to leave. Sudahu silently stared at her back as she walked further and further away, feeling pain in his heart and something else. Mixed feelings. She said that she and he were family members in this life and in the next life, and that was fine. Sudahu walked to a higher platform in the village and sat down. He looked at the mountain and the village alone. He didn't get up until the afterglow of the setting sun spread all over his body. My legs were numb from sitting, and when I got up, I almost fell. He beat him again and again until his legs were numb. Just as he was about to walk home, he suddenly saw a man standing on the mountain road, looking at him blankly. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 406. Sudahu was stunned. Read. Seeing that she didn't go away, he thought about it and walked towards her. Are you going up the mountain? Sudahu saw that she was carrying a pile of firewood behind her back and a bamboo basket in her hand, which contained many mountain products and mushrooms. Sudahu didn't wait for her answer after asking, and helped her unload the firewood behind him. Liang Si didn't move, and quietly let him unload the firewood. The weight on my shoulders was suddenly lifted, and I suddenly felt much more relaxed. "Why are you sitting there alone?" Liang Si asked him. She expected him to respond by sitting there waiting for her, but she knew otherwise. "Think of something." After Sudahu finished replying, he saw her rubbing her shoulders and said, "Next time there is heavy work at home, just call me and I will chop the firewood for you. Don't go into the mountains alone. There are many wild things in the mountains." "I didn't go inside. It's just on the front mountain. Many children go there. There's no danger." "That's good." After speaking, the two people suddenly fell silent. Sudahu didn't know what to say to her. Apart from Sukingyu, he was also not good at talking to young women. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Sudahu thought for a while, then spoke and asked her, "Are you comfortable in the mountains?" Liang Si smiled and said, "It's been several years, and you still ask me this question. I live a very good life in the mountains. The Su family takes good care of me, and other people in the village are also very easy to get along with. They are better than before I lived there. It's much better in our village." "That's good." Liang Si looked at him and saw that he didn't speak again. He didn't even say a word she wanted to hear. Now he was standing in front of her, but it was as if he and her just lived in the same village. It seemed like there was nothing else to say between them, and he couldn't help but feel bitter in his heart. Gritting his teeth, he said, "My mother, she told me about a marriage, and she was also in the village where she was married. She said that if I get married, we can take care of each other." "Ah!" Sudahu suddenly looked at her. "Why are you getting married?" "But she has been in the mountains for several years, and she is not young anymore. She was 17 when she entered the village." "How old is she now?" Sudahu was still thinking when he heard Liang Si ask him, say, "Can I get married?" Sudahu was stunned and nodded, "It's good. There are only you and your mother in your family. When your father left, he couldn't let you go. He asked me to go and see you if I had a chance. He couldn't worry about you. If you can find someone to get married to and have a few happy children in the future, your father will definitely be very happy down there." After Liang Si heard what he said, his throat suddenly choked. Biting her lip, tears welled up in his eyes. 5 years, she has been waiting for him for 5 years, enough, enough. Liang Si didn't look at him and leaned down to carry the firewood back to him. Sudahu caught him and said, "Let me help you carry it." Liang Si didn't give in, bit her lip, lowered her head and pulled the firewood over, leaned over and carried it on her body, then quickly picked up the bamboo basket on the ground, turned around and left. The movement was so fast that Sudahu was stunned and had no time to react. Until the person walked more than 10 steps away, Sudahu watched her hurried away with her head down, and seemed to hear her sobbing. Suddenly something seemed to pull me in my heart, and I suddenly said to Liang Si's back, "Liang Si, I just want to get married. Do you want to consider me?" Liang Si staggered, covered her mouth, and began to cry. As for Sukingyu, after telling Sudahu about it, she suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. Every time she saw him, she was afraid to look at him. She knew it in her heart, but she couldn't respond. She wants him to be happy. If there is an afterlife, let him find Xiaoqing's concubine early and exchange love with her. When I got home, I saw that everyone had left, but the women from the next few rooms were still at home helping to clean up. Sukingyu said hello to everyone and entered the room. In the main room, when she saw that Feng and others were there, she did not go in, but turned around and entered her room. Second, Aunt Feng's voice was so loud that even if Sukingyu entered her room, she could still hear her clearly. Every time she came back, she would drag Su's mother to talk about things. Even in the past few years, with the support of the eldest brother, the second house had a better life, with a house, land, money, and food, and the second house was the only male left. Su Yawu also married a wife and she was pregnant. Mrs. Feng still talked about how miserable her life was, saying that Su'er was gone and she was left as a widow to take care of. Su's father and mother Su always couldn't bear to hear this, so they always gave her a lot of things. As long as they had something at home, they would give it to the second bedroom. But she doesn't seem to have enough. Always come to ask for it. Su Qingyu didn't care about those big boys and always turned a blind eye. Once when she heard her crying miserably, Su Qingnao couldn't help it, so she said that there were many bachelors in the mountains and she was still young. Would she like to help her find a family to remarry? Only then did she restrain herself, and came to the big room less often. She was stupid to marry again. Women who remarry do it either for people or to have a full meal. She is not a human being, and she has no shortage of food. She has 2 daughters-in-law to take care of her at home. Xiaohe's mother-in-law's family is in good condition. She comes back to see her every now and then with mountain products and all kinds of meat, and she is given plenty of money. Da Fang often gave her money to spend, and she had food and drink in the village, and money in her pocket. People in the village saw that she was from the Su family, and they were respectful to her in everything. She was a fool to marry and serve someone else. Other people's families. Perhaps because she was afraid of offending Su Qingnao, she came less often after that. Anyway, as long as Su Qingyu is at home, she is rarely seen. For fear of offending Su Qingyu, he really married her off. Her children all listened to Su Qingyu and might actually take her out to get married. So she was a little scared. Today, taking advantage of Su's father's birthday, Mrs. Feng dragged Su's mother into another messy affair in the main room. Even if the daughter-in-law is pregnant now, she is not satisfied. He said that Xiaohe had given birth to a daughter, and Liwa was also a girl. If Wu Wu got another granddaughter, how would she survive? There are men in the other rooms, but her second room is not good. He also cried that Su'er had a hard life. With the help of his eldest brother, the third and fourth houses were able to live a better life, but he was the only one who had a hard life and did not enjoy any blessings. Su Qingnao didn't know how her parents could listen to it. She wished her ears could be like her eyes, able to be closed and unable to hear these things. Mother, mother. Before Su Qingyu could respond, Xiaobao rushed in like a cannonball while shouting. Seeing Su Qingyu leaning on the bedside, she took off her shoes very neatly and quickly ran into bed. Mom, this bed is so comfortable. After sleeping for so many years, I still miss this bed the most. Xiaobao sighed, hugged her arm and narrowed his eyes. This little thing. He is almost 8 years old and still likes to cling to her. Su Qingyu patted his little butt. Xiaobao also laughed and let her beat him. Knowing that his mother would do it, he just behaved and lay contentedly in his mother's arms. Su Qingjao laughed and scolded him, saying that he was not very stable even at such an old age. If you don't take it seriously when you see him, forget it. He touched Xiaobao's head and stroked his little face. She was filled with emotion. Thanks to this little thing, she had a sense of belonging to this world. Before mother and son could say anything, Dabao walked in, holding a letter and calling his mother. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhjiaoye 11U. Chapter 407. As soon as Dabao came in, he saw Xiaobao clinging to his mother on the bed, so he took off his shoes and jumped on the bed. He nestled on his mother's side while his mother was on the other side. Su Qing'an looked at the 2 sons clinging to her on the left and right, and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Mom, my brother and I will move back to sleep with you. I want to listen to your stories at night. Xiaobao hugged her arm and rubbed it, clinging to his mother's smell. How old are you, and you still listen to your mother's stories? When you were young, your mother told you stories to coax you to sleep. How old are you now? You have learned all the words. If you want to hear any stories, go read the books yourself. The stories that your mother tells are not in the books. Dabeo also buried his head in his mother's body. His mother made him feel warm and at ease. Yes, my brother and I love to listen to mother's stories that are not in the books. No, mother is looking forward to you growing up and occupying a bed by yourself, but I don't want you two to disturb mother again. We didn't disturb mother. Mother, just treat me and my brother as if we are still young. I don't want to grow up at all. Don't want to grow up at all? Who says that he wants to grow up quickly and ride his favorite horse to Renzo and Reazu all day long? Xiaobao choked and rolled his eyes. Then I will grow up during the day and be Xiaoxiaobao at night. It would be great if I could be like Sun Wukong, growing big and small at times, becoming small when I want to listen to stories, and becoming small when I don't want to walk, so that mother can put me in her sleeve and carry me around. How nice it is. You have a beautiful idea. So King Mei really admired her youngest son's brain circuit. Mom, Dabeo wants to listen to your stories. Dabeo felt that the things the teacher said were not as memorable as what his mother said. He remembered all the stories and principles his mother had told him. He had never forgotten a single word. Okay, if Dabeo wants to listen, I will tell him. Mom, you are biased. Why do you tell when my brother wants to listen, but you don't tell when Xiaobao wants to listen? Because your brother is obedient. What's wrong with Xiaobao? Xiaobao stood up on the bed angrily and glared at Suqing'an. Sit down, I feel dizzy lying like this and watching you. This son was doing this and that, giving her a headache. Xiaobao suddenly sat back on the bed. He sat next to his mother, pouted and complained, and glared at his brother again. Hey, brother, whose letter is it? Oh, I forgot. Mom, it's Dad's letter. Really, your dad's letter? Suqing'an heard and sat up. She took the letter and opened it to read. Dabeo and Xiaobao also leaned over. After reading 2 lines, Jilingling trembled twice. Dad was still as mushy as ever. Go away, Mom will read it alone. Seeing the 2 sons rubbing their arms in a weird way, Suqing'an hurriedly drove them away. No, Dad also wrote to us. The 2 refused to leave, each holding one of her arms and unwilling to get up. Suqing'an didn't really want to drive them away. The mother and her 2 sons leaned on the bed to read the letter. Ah, how did my dad get hurt? Is it serious? Xiaobao screamed halfway through. It must be serious. Dad said that he lay in bed for half a month. Dabeo looked worried. It must be very serious. I wonder if he can get up now. What should I do? How did Dad get hurt? Xiaobao felt that Dad must be in pain. He should be able to, otherwise how could he write to us? Dabeo responded. Oh, my father is going to make me anxious. He didn't say anything, just said he missed us. What a bunch of nonsense. Xiaobao looked down quickly, his eyes jumped in anxiety. What are you talking about? Suqing'an glared at him. No, mother, I'm just worried about Dad. How can the army of Liang dynasty be so insidious? If they want to fight, they should fight. Gentlemen are upright. How can they smear poison on arrows? Using such a vulgar method. It's really a mean act. Xiaobao was very angry. The Wu family has never used decent means. Didn't they also use despicable means to rob the throne? They also killed all the princes and grandchildren who were demoted to commoners. What do they know about gentlemen? Dabeo looked disdainful. Suqing'an turned her head and glanced at Dabeo. The mother and son looked at each other, and Dabeo lowered his head. Suqing'an stroked his head and said nothing. Xiaobao chattered for a long time, and seeing that Suqing'an and Dabeo were silent, he ran over to shake her. Mom, can we go to Daddy? I miss Daddy. If you miss your dad, then you and your brother should write more letters to your dad. Mom. Writing letters is useless, I can't even see Daddy. I almost forgot what my dad looks like. Mom, can we go find Daddy? I want to find daddy. Your dad is in the north, which is the territory of the Liang dynasty. Wouldn't it be a distraction for your dad if you go there? He has to worry about your safety in the rear while fighting. Then when can we see daddy? It will be soon. It seems that the Liang dynasty is about to run out of luck. Dabao shook his head. Although the Liang dynasty is in civil strife, the Central Plains and most of the north are in his hands. He can survive and there are still many days to go. That's right, Grandpa Ma said that a lean camel is bigger than a horse. If the Liang dynasty does not fall, will we not be able to see daddy? I miss daddy. Do we have to wait until my brother and I grow up and get married before we can be together with daddy? After saying that, Xiaobao's eyes widened again. Mom, aren't you afraid that my dad will have brothers and sisters in the north? What nonsense are you talking about? Dabao patted him and glared at him. Xiaobao touched his nose and blinked at Su Qingmei. Su Qingyu also glared at him. You little brat, how dare you talk about your parents' affairs, said, your father is not that kind of person. After speaking, he patted his little butt again. Besides, your father has a younger brother and sister, and we just happen to be staying in the mountains. We don't go anywhere and just live our lives comfortably. It's not very good. Xiaobao pouted as soon as he heard this. He wanted to sneak away to find his father, but he was afraid that his mother would be sad. So sad, he misses his father so much. Is there anyone like him who has only met his father once in his life? The mother and son said a few more words, and Su Qingyu kicked them out. I read the letter from Lu Bachan again and again several times. Within 2 days, the autumn harvest began in the mountains. The entire 45 villages in the joint village started to move together. Men, women, children, and children who could walk all followed them to the ground. Chi-Chi was busy harvesting early rice. The early rice has been harvested, and then the winter wheat has to be planted. When the winter wheat is gone, we will start picking autumn tea, then harvest mountain products, and pick wax flowers. Then we will be busy until the snow falls. After half a month of busy work in each village, they finally finished the work in the fields. The Mid-Autumn Festival is also here. Just like the year before last year, Su Qingyu held a long table banquet in the market town, entertaining the village owners, elders of each village, and merchants in the market town. Everyone gathered together to celebrate the harvest year, and thanked everyone for their concerted efforts to build the joint village and protect the village. Lianzai. The long table banquet started at Shizheng and continued lively until the end of Shen dynasty. They all refused to leave. There are enough wines and vegetables. There are rows of tables lined up on the main street of the market town, dozens or hundreds of meters away. Those sitting at the head table cannot see the tail table, and those sitting at the tail table cannot see the head table, only the table. A variety of food and wine are lined up on the street. It's a blast to eat. It wasn't until dark that everyone had enough fun and went back to their homes. After returning home, Su's father and mother were still recalling the excitement of the long table banquet, and Su Qingyu told them that she wanted to find Lu Bachan. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 408. Su's father and Su's mother thought they had heard wrong, and opened their mouths for a long time. Why, you suddenly want to find your son-in-law? But what happened to your son-in-law? Mom and Dad, don't worry, he is fine. I just received a letter from him a few days ago. A letter came from your son-in-law. What did you say? Did your son-in-law ask you to find him? Su Qingyu shook her head. No, he didn't say anything else, he just said he missed us. He was injured by an arrow some time ago and spent half a month recovering. He was afraid that he would make a mistake, so he hurriedly wrote a long letter back. Is my son-in-law injured? Is he seriously injured? The old couple both sounded worried. What if something goes wrong? What will Qing Lao and the child do? He is fine and has recovered from his injuries now. Oh, that's good. The son-in-law didn't let you go, why did you? Mom and Dad, I was just thinking that we have been married for more than 8 years, and we have rarely been together and separated a lot in these years, we have only seen each other twice. We are not like an ordinary couple living a normal life. Sue's father sighed, there is nothing we can do about it. Bocheng is still alive. Look at how many people went to the battlefield and are gone. Their parents and family members no longer have any thoughts. Sue's mother also sighed, this war is going on, and we don't know when it will stop. We don't know when our son-in-law will come back to reunite with us. Su Qingyu also sighed and said, after a long time, it seems that the world is not stable yet. It has been so chaotic for decades. He has been alone in the north for Xiaobao and me, and I can't bear it. I thought about it. After many days, I figured out that since he can't come back, I'll go find him. Sue's father and Sue's mother were silent for a long time. They didn't want their daughter to go to the north. The family escaped from the north a few years ago and finally settled down in the mountains in the south. They lived a peaceful and stable life. There was nothing more to ask for. Being a whole family was better than anything else. He didn't want Su Qingyu to go to Baidi, fearing that something would happen to her. However, the old couple couldn't let her go. The son-in-law is a good man. Over the years, many people in the north must have sent women to him, and many women must have taken the initiative to throw themselves into his arms. However, the son-in-law has always been alone, thinking about Qing Lao and his son at home. Extremely rare. Where can I find such a good son-in-law? The old couple couldn't bear to let their son-in-law stay alone in the Northland again. After talking to Sue's father and mother, Su Qingyu went back to work on his 2 sons. She knew Xiaobao, he had been attached to her since he was a child, and she couldn't let him go. But he is still too young. If he were a few years older, she would definitely take him with her. Once they are separated, they don't know when they will get together again. She couldn't bear to be separated from him for so long. As for Dabao, although he looked more stable than Xiaobao, Su Qingyu knew that Dabao was more attached to her than Xiaobao. This child usually seems to show kindness to everyone, but only Su Qingyu knows that except for his own family, he is not willing to open his guard easily to anyone. Only by facing Su Qingyu can this child unlock his heart. Sure enough, as soon as she told her 2 children that she was going to the north, they exploded. Mom, I want to go too, Xiaobao spun around anxiously, staring at her closely, for fear that she would run away. Mom. I also want to accompany my mother. Dabao pulled her tightly. Mom, my son is over 8 years old this year, almost 9 years old. Mom, I have grown up too, and I am only 1 year younger than my brother. I also want to go with my mother to find my father. The quarrel between the 2 sons made Su Qingyu's head hurt. Feeling helpless and reluctant to give up, Wen Yan advised, be obedient, you are too young to go. The Northland is in chaos now. What will mother do if something happens to you? Mom, nothing will happen to us, and we will protect Mom. Grandpa Ma said that our martial arts skills are outstanding now, and our accuracy is good, but we lack experience. Su Qingyu disagreed. In the past, a 1-stone bow was used for shooting in the martial arts competition. The standard equipment for soldiers' cavalry archery is a 7-do bow. When you can pull the 1-stone bow, I will take you to your father. Mother. Xiaobao jumped to his feet. I'm still young now, and I'm not that strong yet. When I grow up in a few years, I'll be able to pull a stone bow. Xiaobao has inherited some of the Su family's strength, and his archery accuracy is better than Dabao's, but it will take a few more years before he can pull a stone bow. Dabao pursed his lips after hearing Su Qingyu's words. Sukingyu pulled them over, held them in her arms, and comforted them. You should learn your skills at home. If Xiaobao does well in martial arts, he should practice more, but he should not fall behind in literature. He must learn from his brother. If a general can't even read military tactics, he will be looked down upon. Mom, I haven't missed anything in my literature class, Xiaobao retorted with a pouted mouth. Well, you did a good job, and Mom is very happy. But you can do a little better, okay? Alright. Mom, I want to go north with you. Dabao looked at her with burning eyes, a little stubborn. Sukingyu flatly refused. No. You are too young now and don't have the ability to protect yourself. Why go to the north? When you get older, you won't care where you go or what you do. Seeing that his tone was too harsh and frightened Dabao, he softened it again. She touched his face, put his face against hers, and said earnestly, you are still too young, there are some things you don't have to carry on your back all the time. What you want to do, you must first be alive and have the ability to protect yourself. Dabao looked at his mother, who was staring at him, wanting a reply from him, and finally nodded, okay, then wait until Dabao is a few years older before going. Be good. Suchingen was somewhat relieved. As long as this child promised, he would definitely do it. Xiaobao looked at his brother, then at his mother. He looked at his mother, then at his brother. Why didn't he understand? But he did understand that his mother didn't want them to go to the north. He opened his mouth and wanted to speak, but was glared at by Suchingen, and was scared back. He pursed his lips and looked at his brother. Why did his brother give in? He was so angry. Dabao pulled him over to help persuade him, brother, let's wait for mother at home first, let mother go to explore the way first, if father is stable, we will go to find parents. Suchingen nodded, that's right. If your father is stable, mother will take you to her side, and our family will live together and never separate, okay. Xiaobao looked around at his mother and brother, and saw that his mother refused to agree and his brother refused to stand on the same line with him, so he had to hold back. He hugged Suchingen's neck aggrievedly, without saying a word, just hanging. It aroused Suchingen's endless sorrow and reluctance. After making a decision, Suchingen packed her luggage while telling the village's affairs. First, a meeting of the allied villages was held, and Wei Fucain was asked to temporarily replace her as the manager of the allied villages. If there was anything, the village leaders would report to Wei Fucain. The business was fully handed over to Xiangzhen. Xiang Shang handed his son to his father, and he took his wife Xiang Tianqi and Suchingen to the north. The farm affairs were handed over to Su's father and Su Dehuo. The affairs of the academy were handed over to Gu Hongde. She also found some people in the village to go north with her. The day before leaving, Xianyang came to her and said that she wanted to go north with her. After hearing that she had found a substitute female teacher, and that the family affairs had been arranged, and her mother-in-law also supported it, she nodded and took her with her. After packing her luggage, Suchingen felt reluctant to leave, thinking that she would leave tomorrow. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha Xiaoye 11U. Chapter 409. At night, her two sons came to her room carrying pillows and insisted on sleeping together with her. Sukingyu thought about it. She didn't know when mother and son would meet again after leaving, but after patting the bed, Dabao and Xiaobao jumped on it. Mother. My brother and I have discussed that after you leave, we will go to my grandfather in Reishu. When did you make this decision? Why didn't she know? Sukingyu looked at her two sons with a confused look on her face. Seeing that his younger brother was only clinging to his mother, Dabao said, Mom, I saw you taking uncle to the Northland, so we made this agreement. My uncle originally wanted to go to his grandfather to practice, but as soon as he heard that my mother was going to the Northland, I went to the north with my mother. My brother and I also wanted to experience it, so we decided to go to my grandfather. You go to your grandfather's place, don't you want to study anymore? Don't you want to learn martial arts from Grandpa Ma? My brother and I went to see Grandpa Ma, and Grandpa Ma also supported us. The world is so chaotic now, no one will come out to take the imperial examination after 10 years of hard work, but martial arts examinations are organized everywhere. Grandpa Ma said, if we go to Raozhou, he also took Ma Zheng back to Reyes-Hu. He lived with us in the Yu Prince's mansion, and he still taught us. We could accompany our grandfather in normal times, and we could also follow him to the military camp to learn more. Su Qingyu looked around blankly at her two sons. Do children who are not yet 10 years old think so long-term? You're not even as tall as a horse, so you're thinking about going to the military camp for training? Does Xiaobao think so too? Xiaobao buried his head in Su Qingyu's arms and said in a humming voice. Su Qingyu paused, this child must be secretly crying again. She stroked his head and didn't speak for a while. The mother and son lay quietly for a while, and then Su Qingyu said, okay, then when you go to Reyes-Hu, you should stay well in Reyes-Hu, don't run around, and listen to your grandfather and Grandpa Ma. Especially Dabao, Mom said you're not allowed to go to Baidi, so you're not allowed to go, did you hear that? Mom, I know. I understand the importance. Be good. The two brothers should always be good to each other. If anything comes up, discuss it. If you can't solve the problem, go to your grandfather. Dabao should help your mother keep an eye on your brother. If Xiaobao is disobedient, you should teach him a lesson and write a letter. Tell mother, do you remember? Mom. I'm good, I'm obedient. Well, Mom knows you are good. Mom just warned your brother for nothing. Su Qingnao hugged her two sons and chatted all night before falling asleep at dawn. The next day, Su Qing got up quietly, not daring to disturb the two children. He covered them with quilts, kissed each of them on the forehead, and touched their little faces gently again and again. He sat steadily on the edge of the bed and looked at his two sons for a long time before getting up. After saying goodbye to the family, Su Qingnao took Qing Song and others out of the village. Mother Su stood at the door of the courtyard wiping tears and watching her go further and further away. Su's father also had tears in his eyes. How could the north be as stable as the south? This trip would be very peaceful. My heart was filled with worry. Qing Xing also watched her brother and sister walk away with a look of reluctance. She also wanted to follow them out to practice, but her sister wouldn't let them. Go back, Su's father said to the family and turned around. But they saw their two grandsons standing silently behind them, eyes fixed on their mother's back, and the brothers burst into tears. Su Qingyu went all the way north, making up for the current situation on the way. There is civil strife in the Liang dynasty in the Central Plains. I was stabbed by my son, and my brothers chased and killed each other. The Jin state in the north sat on the mountain and watched the tigers fight, and from time to time it also annexed some small northern forces. The Chu state in the south, which occupied the territory south of Jing, already had 15 states and 3 towns in its hands. While the Min Kingdom was swallowing up the Nanping Army's territory, the southern Han dynasty was swallowing up the Jing navy. The Wu state has always been dissatisfied with the states that the Yu state swallowed up at the beginning, and secretly wanted to take them back. But how could Ma Mingwen agree? Wu and Vietnam also had constant frictions. In the first half of the year, Wu state captured Shenzhou, and Ma Mingwen was not idle either, capturing Shezhou. When the state of Wu wanted to seize Suzhou and Hangzhou, how could Ma Mingwen agree? These two places are rich and prosperous. If they are captured by Wu, you will be constrained by Wu. Ma Mingwen personally led his troops and took over Suzhou and Hangzhou ahead of Yang Bai. Yang Bai was so angry that he almost died. There is nothing he can do. Ma Mingwen now has a strong army and strong support among the people, so he cannot go head on. He had no choice but to go all the way north and capture Luzhu, Xiaozhou, and Guangzhou from the Liang dynasty. Lu Baqin, who was originally looked down upon by the Liang dynasty, first obtained Zhaozhou and Yizhu from Yan state, and then exchanged them for Jin state at a price of 3 million taels. Later, they captured Weizhu, Kozhu, and Suzhu from the Liang dynasty, but for some reason in the first half of last year, they lost Weizhu and Kozhu again. Only Suzhu is left in hand. The Liang dynasty thought that his situation was over, so they sent troops to deal with him. They just planned to wait for him to run out of ammunition and food, so that he could take Suzhu back without spending a single soldier. Unexpectedly, in the second half of last year, Lu Baqin suddenly took 80,000 soldiers and horses all the way south, as if he was cheating, and captured Suzhou, Sizhu, Chuzhu, and Yangzhou in one go. Liang Chao was caught off guard. Liang Chao originally wanted to clean up his troops and deal with him, but he didn't expect that Liang Chao himself would be in chaos. The emperor did not act like an emperor, so the soldiers of the Liang dynasty stood aside and watched, allowing Lu Baqin to breathe. Now in the whole of Jiangsu, only Runzhou, Jiangning, and Changzhou are left, trembling among a few big bosses. If Wu Guo goes east, he can capture them. However, no matter how hard the Yu kingdom worked to the north, the three states could be swallowed up. And Lu Baqin continues to go south, maybe he can capture 3 more states. These 3 states were attacked by 3 forces, which made everyone fearful and hesitant. They just wished that all the people could take boats to the sea and escape into the sea for their lives. Why doesn't Lu Baqin want these 3 states? By taking these 3 states, he can be connected with the Yu state, and then he will be stable. But not long ago, he fell into the Liang Chao's plot and was hit by a poisonous arrow, almost unable to save him. I lay in bed for more than half a month, unable to move. All the men began to recuperate. Su Qingyu was sitting on the rickety carriage, holding the map she got from her godfather, and analyzing the current situation in the world. Nowadays, the Northland, the Central Plains, and the Southland are divided into 3 areas with clear boundaries. These separatist regimes all run the country with force, have no value in force, and cannot hold a stable position. But if you just blindly kill and seize territory, without any historical and political strategies in mind, it may be difficult to maintain the normal operation of the territory. Lu Baqin now calls himself Zhenhai Jidushi, and holds the land of 5 states in his hands. Among the forces in the south, he is considered the weakest. Among the 5 states in his hands, only Yangzhou is considered wealthy, and the other 4 states are economically weak even in modern times. Lu Baqin is a small town, and it is not easy to survive in the cracks. Su Qinjiao was also a little worried. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhao 11U. Chapter 410. Recite the URL silently 3 times. Do you remember it? If you don't remember, I'll ask again in the next chapter. It's best to share it on Facebook for me. Su Qingyu and his party walked on the road for half a month and just passed the Yu kingdom and entered the territory of Runzhou in the Liang dynasty. At noon that day, people and horses were exhausted, so Su Qingyu ordered them to rest on the spot. Mrs. Guo, Yubai, and Ningdong helped Su Qingyu get out of the carriage. Xian Niang, who was in the carriage behind, also got out of the carriage with the help of the girl Xiang Xiu. Miss, it's been checked and it's safe. Si Yuan ran over to report. Okay, tell the pot to be cooked. Yes. After Su Qingyu finished her instructions, she kicked her legs. The whole ride in the car made her want to get down and run with the car, even if she was riding a horse. However, Mrs. Guo was watching and was stunned not to let her ride a horse. Su Qingyu thought about it and let it go. It's not because she has an identity now, but it's not peaceful along the way. A woman is sitting on a horse, a clear target. So I stayed in the car peacefully. How are you? Are you okay? Su Qingyu asked Xian Niang, who was walking towards her. Xian Niang was bumped along the way and vomited several times. In order not to affect the schedule, I have been holding back. Fortunately, Lingfeng Valley had prepared plenty of medicinal materials for this trip. Her girl Xiangxiu used a small red clay stove to boil potion for her in the car. Seeing her question, Xian Niang shook her head. It's okay. After taking a few doses of medicine, I felt much better and stopped vomiting. After saying that, she smiled at Su Qingnao. Xian Niang still looked weak, but it did not affect her graceful appearance at all. Compared with Su Qingyu, she is the real lady of this era. Su Qingyu looked at her and sighed, why do you have to suffer this journey with me? Scarlet and Sirui are still young, so you are willing to let them go. Mentioning the two children, Xian Niang sighed, I can't bear to leave them, but my husband has been separated from me for 4 years, and sometimes I feel like I can't live anymore. Jia Rui'er, my mother-in-law takes care of her. My son is in school and has friends and classmates to play with. Rui'er will also go to school next year. They are grown up and sensible, so I don't need to worry too much. The mountains are very peaceful, so I have nothing to worry about. He's out there and I'm worried about him. Su Qingyu can understand her thoughts. In this era, women are accustomed to living dependent on men. Without a man, it would be like the sky has fallen. Even if they have children, they feel that the backbone of the family has fallen and life will be boring. Even though Xian Niang has been a female teacher for 3 years, she still looks like her husband is her first priority. Men nowadays also prefer women like her. Guo glanced at Xian Niang and said nothing. This time, the two women went north to look for their husbands, but neither of them wrote to each other. If there were no surprises but frights when they went there, Guo could almost conclude that Xian Niang would definitely stay in the north to battle wits with her concubine. And her master, Su, would turn around and take them away from the north and back to the mountains. She likes the mountains. The time in the mountains is quiet and peaceful, which makes people feel at ease. In the master's heart, sons come first and men come second. She likes such a master. It's not tiring to serve such a woman. Madam, let me help you take a rest next to you. Yubai and Ningdong will help with the cooking and will bring Madam's food later. Madame Guo ordered the two girls. Yes, Yubai and Ningdong left in response. Su Qingnao looked at the two girls, feeling satisfied, and said to Guo, they are very good, you are very discerning in choosing people. These two girls were brought into the mountains with Guo and others earlier, and they lived in the mountains for many years, usually doing things according to Guo's arrangements. This time Su Qingnao wanted to go north, so Guo chose two girls to follow her. Except for the 4 of them, plus Xiang Shang's wife Tianxi and Xian Niang, a total of 7 women, the other 30 or so people, except Xiang Shang, are all young men with some fists. Si Yuan and Ruyi got married and did not come with them this time. He is now mainly responsible for the martial arts classes in the academy. Si Yuan took the initiative to go north with her. Before departure, he picked a dozen people at the training ground to follow her. Later, Ma Xian asked Lu Xiu to choose 15 people to escort him with him. 32 martial arts guards followed them north, including Xiang Shang, Su Qingyu, and 7 others, for a total of 40 people. Along the way, the group went north from Yuedi and only had to pass through Runzhou, Changzhou, and Jiangning in the Liang dynasty before entering Jinhai town of Lubachan. It should be safer than when she went north to find Lubachan before. Runzhou, Changzhou, and Jiangning are prosperous places, but it is rare to see people fleeing poverty along the way. This made Su Qingnao and his party feel relieved. Everyone found a water source, took clean water, and put rice noodles, dried vegetables, dried meat, and mushrooms into the big iron pot. In less than a while, the fragrance spread for several miles. They were all convenient ingredients. Su Qingyu brought 2 carts with them, which was enough for them to eat outside. After lunch and a short rest, everyone continued on the road. They had only walked for less than half an hour, and it was just when they fell asleep at noon. Sukingyu was drowsy in the carriage when she heard the sound of killing coming from ahead. She woke up with a start, her eyes widened, and her ears pricked up to listen. "Miss, there is a sound of killing ahead." Si Yuan drove her carriage and tilted her head and said to the carriage, "Get people into the woods, quickly." "Yes." Si Yuan immediately stood up, clasped his hands together, and gave instructions to the motorcade. Soon, 8 carriages and several horses all rushed into the woods. "Miss, don't come out, I'll go ahead and take a look," Si Yuan said and ran forward first. Lu Xiu and others immediately became alert and surrounded the people, carriages, and horses. Yubai and Ningdong had never experienced anything like this before, and their hands and feet were trembling. They turned around and saw Mrs. Guo looking at them, and seeing Madam's calm face, they tried to calm themselves down. In the other car, Tian, Xian Niang, and Xiangxiu were also frightened. The 3 women were huddled together and they didn't dare to open the car curtain. Soon the shouting and killing sounds got closer and closer. Yubai and Ningdong, who finally calmed down, began to tremble again. "Don't be afraid," Sukingyu comforted them both. We are not afraid." Although his teeth were chattering, he still managed to smile in response to Sukingyu. Sukingneo smiled at the two of them. Seeing Mrs. Guo sitting there as steady as a mountain, she cooed at her, "Look at you, Madame Guo, as if you are in trance." The 2 girls went to see Mrs. Guo, who glanced at them. "What's the use of being afraid? If you are destined to die, you will still die no matter how afraid you are." Sukinjeo then laughed, "You have been through 1,000 sails, but she is still young." As he spoke, he took out a handful of candies from the purse on his waist and handed one to each of them. "Eat it. Don't be afraid, Si Yuan and the others are here." Yes, the 2 girls reached out and took it, tore off the candy wrapper and put it in their mouths. Sure enough, their teeth no longer chattered. Outside, Lu Xiu and others were protecting a few female relatives who were hiding in the woods, but the other party had already rushed in front of them. Look closely. A car was speeding on the road. The roof of the car was lifted off, leaving only half of the frame around it. An old man huddled in the corner of the carriage holding a young man in one hand, holding tightly to the frame of the carriage with the other. His face was full of anxiety and sorrow. He looked back frequently, shouting, "Quick, quick." The driver was an old man, holding the reins in one hand and whipping the horses, pulling the cart with the other. There were several guards protecting the carriage, firing arrows backwards as they ran. He was about to be caught up by the people behind him. At the beginning of the chapter, I asked you to read it silently 3 times. Do you remember? Share on Facebook and there may be surprises. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 411. Recite the URL 3 times silently. Do you remember it? If not, I will ask you again in the next chapter. It would be best if you share it on Facebook for me. Sukingmei opened the curtain of the car and saw this scene. In the car, whose roof was cut off, an old man and a young boy were full of fear, sorrow, and pain. The despair was unbearable to watch. The old man who was driving the car whipped the whip repeatedly, and kept saying "Jia Jia" in his mouth. Half of the car was shaking and was about to fall apart. "Shoot!" Sukingmei shouted. "Shoot!" Lu Xiu heard it and hurriedly ordered his men to draw their bows and shoot arrows. Sukingmei didn't know who was a good person and who was a bad person, but she couldn't bear to see an old man and a young boy being hunted down like this. After raising her son, her heart was very soft, and she couldn't bear to see the old and the young suffer. At this critical moment, she would rather kill the wrong person than save the person. Otherwise, if they were really thieves, they would kill the old man and the young boy, and then turn around and kill the witnesses. Su Qingmei didn't want any of them to make a mistake. Lu Xiu let out an arrow, and he and Si Yuan's men all drew their bows. Thanks to the fact that the village has been guarding against mountain bandits and others coming to rob the village for years, the village has been training the men tightly. The 50 people who followed Ma Xian into the mountains are naturally no exception, each of them can fight 100, and the other people in the village have been trained for years, and the weakest can fight 10. And everyone is so accurate. The group of people who were chasing after them on horseback saw that the people were right in front of them, and they were already in the bag, and they were happy in their hearts. Unexpectedly, this group of people who came out of nowhere suddenly shot arrows at them, and the arrows of the people seemed to come out of nowhere, catching them off guard. The horses ran forward, and they didn't have time to stop and turn, and were led by Lu Xiu and Si Yuan to hide on the ground. Seeing people being shot down, Lu Xiu, Si Yuan and others went forward with knives to check. They didn't want to kill them, they just wanted to delay some time so that the people running in front could run farther. Unexpectedly, the people who fell to the ground turned over and started to fight with Si Yuan and others. And all of them were killing moves? They were sinister and cruel. Si Yuan and Lu Xiu looked at each other and must not let them live. Otherwise, Su Qingmei and others would be in danger. Both of them saw what the other meant, made a gesture to the group of men, and also used killing moves on more than 20 people. For a while, the sound of swords and knives hitting each other was extremely fierce. Su Qingmei was worried, thinking about various plans in her mind, what to do if we were defeated. Before she could think of a reason, Si Yuan and Lu Xiu killed all the people. "Miss, it has been confirmed that there is no survivor," Si Yuan came to report to Su Qingmei. Su Qingmei was greatly relieved when she heard it. Ningdong and Yubai fell to the ground as their legs went weak. They were so scared that they thought they would have to die here. Xianyang, Tianqi, and others were also too weak to stand. "Go and check if there is any identity information," Su Qingmei ordered. "Lu Shizhang is taking people to check," Xiang Shang replied. Su Qingmei nodded. After a while, Lu Xiu walked towards her. "I have looked through them all, but I can't find the other party's identity information, but they all have a lot of money. There are also some letters." Letters? Su Qingmei was a little confused and took the things. She didn't open a few letters, but flipped through a few books. Her eyes widened. "Is this Kunchizaio?" Su Qingmei has heard of this book. It is said that it has been lost since the Tang dynasty, and it has been lost for more than 1,000 years. Legend has it that it was later transferred to the east. The prosperity of the Japanese and Ben dynasties was due to this book. It is said that this book was written when Li Shimin first ascended the throne. In order to avoid the death of the second emperor of the Sui dynasty, he planned to learn from history and dig out wisdom from the classics of the past dynasties so as to learn from the good governance measures of the ancients to govern the country. Therefore, he ordered Wei Zheng, Yu Shinan, Chu Suliang, and Xiao Dian to select the essence of state governance from the classics of ancient sages and write this Kunchizaio. Now, is this book in her hands? But are there only these few books? Kunchizaio covers historical materials on state governance from the ancient 5 emperors to the Jin dynasty, and brings together the thoughts of ancient classics and history and various schools of thought. At that time, Wei Zheng and his people carefully selected from more than 14,000 volumes and more than 89,000 volumes of ancient books, and finally completed this condensed volume of the essence of classics and history for thousands of years. Kunchizaio selected a total of 65 classics, divided into 3 parts, classics, history, and various schools of thought, and excerpts were made according to each classic. Why are there only so few books? Seeing that Su Qing'an seemed to recognize the book and liked it very much, Lu Xiu turned around and said to his subordinates, "Look for it again." Yes. After a while, a group of subordinates came to report, "We have searched everywhere and searched a section further ahead, and found nothing missing." Suqing felt a little regretful and waved to Lu Xiu and others, "Bury the man." "Yes." After Lu Xiu and others left, Suqing flipped through the books in her hand. According to historical records, after the compilation of essentials of governance from various books, Li Shimin was very happy and often kept the book in his hands. He also asked people to copy more than a dozen copies and give them to the crown prince and major ministers. He said to Wei Zheng, "After reading this book, I understand how to learn from the ancient saints and kings. I am no longer confused when encountering things, and I know how to govern this country. This is all your credit." But later, somehow it was lost. These books in my hand are obviously only a small part of it. Suqing felt a little sorry. "Who is it?" The guards surrounding Suqing suddenly raised their swords and shouted forward, and Suqing also turned her head to look. "Miss, they are back." Suqing also saw that several people who had been hunted before were back. A guard was holding a young man, and the young man was still bleeding. The old man who was driving the carriage was supporting the old man who was in the carriage. A guard was accompanying him. The group of 5 people looked quite embarrassed. Suddenly being stopped by someone, the old man driving the cart hurriedly let go of the old man's arm, took a few steps quickly, and threw himself in front of Suqing. He knelt down and begged, "Madam, I beg you good people to do it to the end and save my young master. He was hit by an arrow. We rushed to the city ahead. I'm afraid the young master won't be able to hold on anymore. I beg you." The old man looked at his grandson who was being held by the guard. He felt sad and walked towards Suqing. He could see that the woman surrounded by people was the leader of the group. Just as he was about to kneel down to beg, he was supported by a guard on the side. He held the old man up and knelt down to Suqing. "Please, madam, please save my young master. Please save him. I am willing to do it for madam. A cow acts like a horse to repay madam for saving her life." The old man couldn't help but shed tears. "Madam, we are not bad people, those who are chasing us are the bad people. Now my grandson and I are the only ones left in my family. The thieves still want to kill them all. If Zher goes, I can't survive either. He is all trying to save me, just to save me." As the old man spoke, he shed tears and beat his chest. Seeing that he was in grief, Suqing couldn't bear it and ordered Lu Xiu to come forward and help him take a look. At the beginning of the chapter, I asked you to read it silently 3 times. Do you remember? Share on Facebook and there may be surprises. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhjiaoye 11U. Chapter 412. Recite the URL silently 3 times. Do you remember it? If you don't remember, I'll ask again in the next chapter. It's best to share it on Facebook for me. Lu Xiu is not a doctor, but he has been in the army for many years and knows how to deal with wounds from swords and arrows. Lu Xiu stepped forward to check it out and said to Suqing, "It's an ordinary arrow wound, non-toxic. Can it be cured?" "It can be cured. They have simply dealt with it before. We have medicine with us. As long as the bleeding is stopped, it will be fine. Then do your best." "Yes." When the old man and others heard this, they couldn't help but be overjoyed. They couldn't help but kowtow to Suqing, "Thank you, madam, thank you madam." Lu Xiu worked hard and bandaged the boy. The bleeding stopped, and there was a trace of blood on the boy's pale face. "Grandfather? Hey, Zher, my grandfather is here, here. Zher has a good life. He will meet a good person and he won't have to die." The old man squeezed his grandson's hand tightly and choked with sobs. When the young man heard this, he smiled and looked at Suqing, "Thank you, madam. It takes a little effort. This young man is really exquisite, especially his smile. He is really handsome. Young man is like jade," that's what he said. Suqing thought of the things in her hand and handed them to the old man. "Are these yours?" The old man took the things over and was very surprised to see that everything was there, Thank you, madam, thank you madam. He held the things in his arms excitedly, feeling a sense of joy at having lost them. Sukingyu felt a little sick, either because of the money or the books, which she didn't want to hand over. But you handed over money and letters, but not books? Can't do this. Seeing that the matter was resolved, Sukingyu planned to continue her journey. Seeing that she was about to leave, the old man hurriedly asked, I haven't asked my benefactor what to call her yet. I'll be able to repay you in the future. It doesn't matter, it's just that the road is uneven. It's just a matter of convenience. Sukingyu ordered Mrskuo to pack some medicinal materials for healing wounds and give them to them, and then planned to set off. The old man's mouth opened and closed, and opened again, and he rubbed his hands anxiously. The old man glanced at him and hurriedly ran to Sukingyu. Madam, may I ask where you are going, madam? Do you want to go with me? Sukingyu looked at the master and servant, and realized that she must be afraid of being chased. If you come along, I wouldn't mind escorting them for a ride. We plan to go all the way north to Suzhou. Ah, go north to Suzhou. The old man and the old man looked at each other, feeling very disappointed. Why go north? What is there to do in the north? Very messy. Sukingyu looked at their expressions and understood. Are you going south? Yes. We are going south to you, to Reizhu in you. The old man felt very disappointed when he couldn't follow the road, but he returned his benefactor truthfully. Are you going to Reizhu? Sukingyu looked at Guo next to her. The old man happened to see it and said, Madam, you also know this place. It's not his fault for being narrow-minded. Women nowadays rarely travel far away. He just thought that the woman in front of him was visiting relatives in a nearby city and returning to her parents' home. Sukingyu didn't hide it from him and nodded. That's where we came from. Oh? The lady knows Reizhu very well? How is the public sentiment there? How is the reputation of the king of Yu? The old man asked questions hurriedly, and the old man could not stop him. Are you going to defect to the king of Yu? Sukingyu was a little surprised. When the old man heard this, he was a little surprised. How did madam find out? They only said they were going to Reizhu. Gathering books together, Sukingyu cooed at the handbook in his hand. A glimmer of light suddenly appeared in the old man's eyes. Madam, you also know about this book. Sukingyu nodded and talked about her understanding of Kunshuzio. The more the old man listened, the brighter his eyes became, as if he had found a close friend. This book was handed down from our ancestors. Most of the boys in the family have read this book. We heard that the land of Yu was under the governance of the king of Yu, and the people were united, the land was rich, and the people lived and worked in peace and contentment. We thought of Reizhu and defected to the king of Yu. Then you have met the right person. It is just right for our princess to write a letter of recommendation for you. It is much better than you just randomly asking for help, Lu Xiu said quickly on the side. Ah, you are the princess? Princess of the Yu kingdom. The old man and his party were shocked. When he reacted, he was about to kneel down to Sukingyu. Sukingyu hurriedly supported him. It's just a name. Thinking of the important books in his hands, people without any knowledge of this book will not be able to get this book. Can the books read by the emperor be read by ministers and common people together? It is also a book about state governance. Apart from the palace, only the dozen or so important ministers who were rewarded by Li Shimin had their families. And 200 or 300 years have passed, who knows if it is still there. There are people who read this book, and the family whose children and grandchildren are still studying this book must not be simple. The godfather should need such talents. He said, if you want to join my godfather, I can introduce him to you. I will write you a letter of recommendation. Yu is in desperate need of some capable officials. The old man began to look at Sukingyu seriously. He didn't doubt the identity of the woman in front of him. Since he made up his mind to go to Yu, he naturally collected information about Yu. He also knew about the goddaughter of Yu King Ma Mingwen. It is said that she holds 45 villages in Jiangdong. Originally, the poor population in the mountains was small, but now it is said that there are tens of thousands. Moreover, the king of Yu was the first to start an uprising, thanks to her leading people to plant 2 crops of rice in the mountains. Otherwise, the Vietnamese army's food problem had not been solved, and they would not have reached the point where they are now. One of the forces. The old man was silent for a long time and then asked Su King Yu, "May I ask if the princess is going to Suzhou to find Zhenhai Jidushi?" This old man can do it. He also knew the relationship between Zhenhai Jidu and her. He also looked at him, and asked instead of answering, "Excuse me, where did the old man come from?" The old man looked around and said, "Princess, can you please take a moment to speak?" Su Qingyu nodded, fearing that the old man's status was special, so he led him to a sheltered place. "My surname is Pei, and the former Prime Minister Pei Shu was my late father." "Ah, then you are Pei Shi," Su Qingyu was very surprised. She didn't expect that she would save Pei Shu's descendants. "The princess knows about Lao Ruan." Su Qingyu nodded. In the disaster of Baimei, Pei Shu and more than 30 of his colleagues were thrown into the Yellow River by Wu Quanzhong. The Pei family in the east of the river was in ruins. Pei Shu's grandfather was the minister of the Ministry of Personnel, his father was a censor, and Pei Shu himself became the prime minister. The whole family was full of arrogant people. Which of the ministers of the Manchu dynasty did not have an in-law of the Pei family? After Wu Quanzhong ascended the throne, he was afraid of the revenge of the descendants of these ministers, so he suppressed them and killed them all. It is not easy for the old and the young to survive. "You Pei family are in Hedong Mansion, why don't you surrender to King Jin?" Su Qingyu was a little confused. The Mu family is a foreigner, and now the Mu and Wu families cannot resolve their feud. A major war is inevitable. Either the east wind will overwhelm the west wind, or the west wind will overwhelm the east wind. The only direct lineage of the Pei family is me and Ji, and I don't want to stay any longer. I wanted to go to the north, thinking that the king of Yu was kind and generous. Su Qingyu nodded to express her understanding. Before she could speak, Pei Shi said again, "But now, I have other ideas." At the beginning of the chapter, I asked you to read it silently 3 times. Do you remember? Share on Facebook and there may be surprises.